is ever since I started my career with the Forest Service, back in 1969 was my first summer working for the Forest Service, and I was bound determined to change the direction of the Forest Service. Okay? So anyway, I worked on that for a long time, 38 years, okay? And I thought I was doing a good thing for a while, but I'm not sure. But what I figured out, spreading the word through multi-agency organizations and communities is much, much more effective than trying to change the direction of a snake, okay? And now I don't mean that in a derogatory term, but agencies move in a serpentine fashion, right? Like a snake. So they don't make a right angle turn any one time. So I figured it's better to work with communities. And I did get a lot of recognition for, going down and wasting my time as a national office person talking to grade schoolers, okay? But anyway, that's a different story. So what I want to do is my objective today is for you to have fun, okay? And to learn something and not get hurt. Don't fall out of your chair, and I don't want you to get hurt physically or emotionally, okay? So when we have the test at the end, don't fret it, okay? So it won't hurt. Okay, I'm kidding, obviously. I throw this slide up to start with, is most of us have probably seen this. It's a picture of the Lahaina fire, the only house that survived on Maui following a fire. And it's got a lot to do with what we're going to be talking about over the next hour or so. Okay, a lot of people call this the miracle house. It's not a miracle at all. It's science, okay? Heat is transferred 3 different ways: convection, conduction, and radiation. Okay, that's the most technical I'll probably get all day. Okay, and heat could not get to that house by those 3 means, and there's no other way that heat can get there. This house is over 100 years old. It's not made out of fire-resistant material. It's made out of good old wood, okay? But the thing is, it's got space, okay? And we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about space, okay? That's enough for that for the time being. We'll come back to that. So what this house did not have the radiant energy pushed against the house to catch it on fire. Anybody ever been around a campfire and you stand close to it and it's warm, right? Somebody throws a log on it and it gets hotter than hell, right? But you don't have to back up very far, do you? It's just a little bit back. In fact, what that is, radiation decreases inversely proportional to the square root of the distance, okay? You need to remember that. No, not at all. You back up just a little bit from a campfire and the heat goes way away. So what we're going to talk about is how to protect your house from radiation, okay? So we're going to talk about that, and we're going to do it with plants, okay? I just made that part up. So did we move the thing? We're not, oh. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about, I'm going to try to put this in perspective, if you will. Okay, we're going to talk about climate change and why it's a big deal. Okay, but we're going to talk about saving different things: water, homes, habitat, and reducing maintenance, making you feel good about where you live. Okay, so, and we're going to talk about some fire-resistant plants. I'm going to define my terms as we go through here. I'm going to go through kind of quick. You ever heard about, we're going to connect the dots? Before you connect the dots, you got to have a lot of dots, right? And that's the objective here, okay? Very clear. This is a complicated slide, but hopefully you all understand it, is we're going to talk about a lot of what seem to be unrelated items, and then hopefully towards the end, it will all make sense, okay? So first we're going to talk about climate change. It's real, it's here, it's happening, okay? Now, do you remember a while ago we talked about how things are going to get hotter and what have you, is they probably are. But, and then people would discount it by saying, we got the coldest weather on record, you know, on what have you. And so we decided that that's not a good thing to talk about. I'm just going to put these slides up here. You can read better than I can. So I'm just going to talk about related items up there, okay? So if you noticed what's happening today or these days is the climate is starting to act more like weather, and the weather is acting more like climate. We're getting drastic changes, okay? Why are we getting those drastic changes? Because we got these extremes. There's a tremendous amount of energy in the atmosphere. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but does anybody know what the record dry, warm in the Pacific Northwest was? It's happening right now. This is the driest, warmest winter we've ever had. Does anybody know what the coldest, moist winter that ever was on the East Coast? Is today, okay? So why in the hell is that happening, okay? We're getting these drastic differences. We got tremendous energy in the atmosphere. And you ever seen, you know, the high pressures and low pressures? We're not going to talk a lot about weather. I'm not a meteorologist, but I stayed at a Holiday Inn. But anyway, one of the things, I mean, I do know a fair amount about weather and what have you, being a fire guy, is these extremes, the atmosphere, the energy is trying to equalize itself out. So it starts moving rapidly from one area to another area, causing extremes in conditions. A couple of years ago, here in this city of Wenatchee, one day we had 120 degrees. I think it was the record high or near the record high. I don't remember and then less than 2 weeks later, we had 40 degrees, okay? So we get these temperature ranges, and absolutely bizarre. So if you think about the average didn't change, because normally, during normal times, we'd vary somewhere between 70 and 90 degrees. And you still average 80. But now, look at the extremes, from 40 to 120. So we're getting strange things are happening, okay? Same thing with precip. Okay, one year we get no rain, the next year we get 20 inches. And we average 9 inches here. So strange things are happening. Uh-oh. Can we change? Okay, so what we're going to talk about, and I just showed on that slide in Lahana, is that house was not a fire-resistant house by any means. 100 years old. It had all kinds of things that are wrong with that house, but it had vegetation that is right. So we're going to talk about something that we really have control over and can do something about is the vegetation around our homes, okay? But what is the right vegetation? You know, it's like, hell, I don't know. But it's a piece of vegetation that's got great diversity, and it's got a great range of variability that it can live with, okay? And most of those things, well, you can see the xeric, I'm going to show definitions here in a second. So we want to be adaptive to change, if you will, and be planning ahead of times. General Eisenhower during World War II made a statement that I thought was really great, and I'll paraphrase it, is anybody that implements an action without a plan is a fool, right? I mean, he did D-Day and all that. Do you know what the rest of that sentence was? Anybody that ever tries to implement a plan is a fool, okay? So I think that is something that is really relevant to what we're doing, is we need to build a plan, build an action, if you will, what we're going to do, but we need to be adaptive, okay? As we start to implement it and find out that it's not quite working, we don't stick with the same darn plan. We implement it, or excuse me, adapt it and implement that as we go. Make sense? So I want to do a little bit of definitions. I know most of us know these, but just so we're talking about the same thing. Native plant is something that's been around forever, right? It was here when the glaciers went away, when the hot spot left us. It was here. A naturalized plant is something that was brought in and it reproduces quite well. Anybody know what the first naturalized plant in North America was? This is the 2-point extras on the, I give you a hint. The Pilgrims brought it with them because they weren't sure there was green plants in North America. And they're yellow and they're in your lawn. Dandelion was the first naturalized plant. They brought it over on the Mayflower. So anyway, a couple other definitions, xeric means it doesn't take a lot of water to run it, or to keep it live. But all xeric plants around our home need a little help getting started. So if we can help them first year or two to get established, then they're pretty free to go. Biodiversity just means a lot of different living things, not all one. It's not a cornfield. Here is something that really gets to me, okay? And these are 4 definitions that I think are very important. The first definition is fire resistant. That means it don't burn easy. It's hard to catch on fire. It's different from fire resilient. Fire resilient means if it does burn, it recovers quickly. It comes back. We want our homes to be fire resistant. We want our forest to be fire resilient. Fire is not a bad thing. It only is bad in the wrong place. Make sense? Okay, the other 2, fire tolerant, it plays well with fire, okay? And fire adapted means it grew up in a fire environment. Okay, those first 2 terms, fire resistant and fire resilient, are important terms. Okay? Yeah, shrubs and shrub step, just a flat area. A shrub is something that has multiple stems, and the only difference between a shrub and a tree's got 1 stem, a shrub's got multiple stems, okay? That's really the only difference between the 2. The ecology of Central Washington, okay, we got 3 basic, if you will, biomes. We got the sage steppe east of the, well, I will say east of the river, but once we get down to the lowland and moving out towards Douglas County, we got the shrub steppe, and we got the dry forest, the ponderosa pine forest, and then we get up higher, we got the mixed conifer. Okay, what I wanted to talk about here, also one thing, I'll bet you 90% of us, 97.5% of us, have never really thought about this little geology determines the geography, right? Plate tectonics and all that good stuff determine where we sit. The geography determines the climate, right? Climate determines the soil. Soils determine the plants. I think we all agree on this. And the plants determine the animals. So we're going to be talking about native stuff. Okay, if we want non-native animals around our home, what kind of plants should we plant? Okay? If we want desirable animals, critters, and what have you, around our home, should we be planting native vegetation? Duh! Okay. By the way, geology and geography, you know how to keep those separate? Geology really rocks. Geography's where it's at. But geometry keeps you squared away. Okay. So we're going to talk about the shrub steppe, okay? And the fuels that are out there. And that's the kind that, excuse me, I should back up, is we don't have trees out there, if you will, from the Columbia River east, right? And so we need to make sure that we keep that biome in check. By the way, what do you think the biggest threat to that biome is? What vegetative threat? Cheatgrass. Very good. Angela, where'd you go? We were talking about this earlier. This is the things I was going to test out. Now we got it halfway in between. It ain't forest and it ain't sage steppe. It's that ecotone. We got a lot of that here, don't we? A lot of the CDLT land is in that ecotone between the shrub steppe and the forest, okay? It ain't one and it ain't the other. And it, over time they change, okay? The other one, the dry forest, the ponderosa pine forest, that we've got a lot of this that is very non-fire resilient, right? What's the biggest threat to the dry ponderosa pine forest? What do you think? What vegetation critter is the biggest threat? Now, this is an opinion. What? Douglas fir. In my opinion, the biggest threat by far to our dry land forest is Douglas fir coming in. Douglas fir is a species that comes up underneath the shade and replaces and doesn't allow. So think about that. Think about the threats. By the way, yeah, and then the conifer, the mixed conifer forest is the other type, as we get up towards Lake Wenatchee and on up to the crest. Make sense? So, so there's our three types, if you will, the categories. Oh, this is what I'm going to talk about. The three categories, the trees, the shrubs, the grasses, and the forbs. Is what I was going to talk about is these are the native pieces of vegetation that I think are desirable for us here in Central Washington, broken out by their appropriate biome, if you will, whether it be the shrub steppe, the dry forest, or the mixed conifer forest, okay? Whoop, did I go through? No, that's, yeah. Any question? Yeah, I tell you what, before you speak, you're going to have a microphone so that everybody can hear you, okay?
Okay, so why is Douglas fir such a threat to the other kinds of trees?
When a dry pine forest, the dry forest, the ponderosa pine forest, it's used to living with disturbance. And that primary disturbance has been happening for the past millennia, or multiple millennia, is wildland fire, okay? Fire kept Douglas fir out of the forest. We have excluded fire from a natural component of the forest. As part of the ecological system, fire is a necessary component of a dry forest. If it doesn't happen, it will move towards what is called a climax type of condition, a steady state undisturbed, assuming that we have removed fire, if you will. But we can't remove fire, okay? So fire comes in, Douglas fir creates a thick, heavy stand, which allows fire to go up into the canopies of the trees, wiping out the stand. Does that make sense? It's the ladder fuel. It creates the non-fire resilient. Ponderosa pine forest are very fire resilient, but when you introduce Doug fir in multiple layers, they become ladders for the flames to go up and wipe out that stand. Does that make sense? Wait, don't.
Come on.
Da, 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 da.
Doesn't the Doug fir also create moisture stress? Which
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't necessarily, that's not the bad thing about Doug fir.
Okay.
Too many trees, whatever brand they are, create stress. In fact, one of the interesting things we hear a lot about western pine beetle killing all the big trees, okay? And if you think about it, the western pine beetle is only able to kill those trees because we have a moisture stress, because we got too many trees, which allows the, if you will, the one beetle to get in, which allows another beetle, the western pine beetle, to get in. So in many cases, the western pine beetle that we see killing all the big ponderosa pine, it's almost a tertiary or quaternary effect of too many trees. Okay? Okay, we're going to be open for questions. In fact, please try to get me to say something anytime during this. We don't have to go from A to Z, we can jump around, okay? Here are the attributes that I think are very important for fire-resistant plants, plants that don't burn very easy. There's three things necessary for a fire to burn: heat, fuel, and oxygen, right? You know, you turn the gas burner on in your stove, you need to have those three things. If we have a low-growing plant, it doesn't get very much oxygen. So it doesn't burn very efficiently, effectively. If we have an open configuration in a plant, it doesn't burn very well. Let me ask a question. What's warmer, a mitten or a glove? Why? Your fingers are together and the radiant energy is transferred very efficiently between your fingers. When you have a glove on, your fingers are spread out and the radiant energy is lost to the atmosphere, so you have a very low efficiency of the radiant energy, so it's gone. So if we have the same thing with the branches on a plant, if we have an arborvitae, anybody ever heard of that? Okay, by the way, one other biome that I'll throw out is the urban wildland interface biome. What is the biggest threat to that? Just a guess. Okay, not only is it a threat to the immediate homes, but it's a threat to the entire community. Because arborvitae has, don't have some pictures of arborvitae in here, but I'm going to talk about it just for a quick second. It is 95% dead material, okay? And what it does, it produces a tremendous flame length. A plant maybe 6 to 8 feet tall will produce about a 30 to 40 foot flame length. Okay, a flame length of that magnitude is producing thousands of BTUs per unit, okay? And you get down here into something very short, and a 3 foot flame is maybe producing maybe 60 BTUs per second. So, exponentially larger. It's a lot hotter. Okay, high moisture content. From a fire behavior standpoint, if you take a piece of Kleenex, soak it with water, and then take a match or a lighter to it, is it going to burn right away? It's got to boil off all that water, doesn't it? It's got to boil off all that water before. So it takes a tremendous amount of convective energy to boil off that water before it can catch on fire. Same thing is true with sap-like water. Broad leaves. You ever try to take a log and take a match to it and burn it? No, but if you make it small, kindling, much easier, right? So the surface to volume ratio makes a big difference. And again, herbaceous plants from a fire behavior standpoint, they got a lot of moisture in them and they got big leaves generally. So it takes a lot more energy for those to burn. Hopefully the low accumulation of dead material is pretty easy. That it takes less energy to burn dead, dry stuff than it does green, live stuff. Tight bark, okay, versus say a cedar tree versus an elm, or maybe a maple. And I think I got some pictures of those. Here's another way to look at it. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but short versus tall. Again, it can't get much oxygen if it's short. You can read those just as well as I can, better. Okay, I want to talk about a couple of things here. Most of us are concerned about our homes being burned by a huge crown fire. A crown fire is a fire that's a three-dimensional fire. It's burning the entire thing. I want to talk about this a little bit. This is not the fire that burns most homes. This is not the type of fire. It's a scary sucker, but that's not the one. By the way, if you notice, there's a lot of instrumentation around this. Okay, and this particular shot is this is a prescribed burn. And what they've got out here, back in this area, is there's a bunch of houses that were built. A fellow named Jack Cohen put a bunch of houses back there, measured all the energy, measured everything, wired it for sound to find out how far from this crown fire do I need to be, or does a house need to be, so it won't catch on fire. And I'm going to tell you what that distance is. I want you to think about it first. Okay? So we'll skip that. Oh, one more thing. How long In fact, I'm going to ask one of the gentlemen in the audience, how long do you think this type of active fire from here to here? Russ, what's the difference in time? Maybe a couple of minutes, usually almost just a minute. A crown fire lasts, just in a single tree, not the stand of trees, a crown fire usually lasts in one tree about 60 seconds. That's how long the active flaming goes on. Now this stuff, this may burn for 2 weeks, but it's not a tremendous amount of heat. So this is kind of it's scary scene. I've seen this. I know Russ has seen this. It's scary. It makes a lot of noise and does a lot of things. But I tell you what, this is the fire that gets us. These are spot fires, okay? 70 to 90% of all homes that burn are ignited by embers landing on or near your home. Make sense? These are the guys that get you. So these are not the hot crown fires. These are embers, maybe a quarter inch, an inch in diameter, sometimes bigger. And these are the fires, are the source that starts most homes on fire. So if we can think about how can we protect just the immediate area, because a little ember doesn't have a lot of heat, does it? It doesn't have a lot of burn time. It doesn't have a lot of residence time. So it's got less, if you will, than that big crown fire is most of the time of residence time, the time that it's actually burning actively when it lands. So we can handle these very easily by manipulating our vegetation. I mean, we need to keep them out of the house, and that's probably the only part I'm going to talk about from a structure thing, is we want mesh inside, metal mesh inside our vents, 1/8 inch or less. Because if it's an 1/8 inch or less, and it goes through that, it's small enough that it won't have enough energy and heat in it to catch something on fire inside our house. Make sense? Okay, now we're going to talk about a thing. This is where it's all at, the home ignition zone. And that's the 100 feet around our home. And we got 3 different landscape zones in that. If you will, we got, where'd it go? Okay, the outside edge here, this is, if you will, 30 to 100 feet from the home, okay? And that, we're going to talk about the type of vegetation we want in there. And then we got this area right around the home. Landscape zone 2 is we got specific types of vegetation and characteristics in that area. And then the 5 feet around our home, that red area, we got certain things we want there. And so what we've done is we got objectives. Landscape zone 3, if it does catch on fire, we want it to burn with low intensity. Remember I was talking about that 3-foot flame length? 60 BTUs, you can throw dirt at it. You can squirt water at it and put it out if it does catch on fire. But it's not going to be a raging inferno. Okay, landscape zone 2, our objective in there, if something does catch on fire, it won't spread from one woody plant to another woody plant. Okay? And in landscape zone 1, we want no burnable materials. Okay? But that doesn't mean no, not pretty and not what have you. It means that we want material in there that doesn't easily catch on fire. Because what we've done from 3 to 2 to 1, we've started, anybody know what this is? This is my prop. We're out in landscape zone, we're 100 feet from the home. The intensity is way up here. And when it gets into landscape zone 2, it gets down to here. And the intensity when it gets to the house is 0. Okay? We're going to use that again too. So, where are we at? Does that make sense? Okay, well here. I covered all that already in the last slide. When I say nothing burnable, What I'm talking about is in that landscape zone 1, we want ground covers that have a high moisture content in them. We want herbaceous perennials and annuals. Anybody, what do you think a lupin, has in it for moisture content when it's green? Susan, what do you think? Okay. I think a lupin with low moisture content is about 250%. Okay? Geraniums have about 400% moisture in them. Okay? So what's that saying? What that's saying is the damn plant is almost all water. Okay, what happens, how much vegetative material is there if you desiccate that plant? How much material? Almost none, right? So not that we're going to be desiccating it, but I mean, think about that. I had to do this in an aspen stand for 3 years, cut every damn plant in that thing, take it back and put it in a bag, take it to the oven, dry it, weigh it, and all that good stuff, and figuring out how much moisture was in there. Just a second.
Were you making a joke when you said 400%?
No, I'm not making a joke. That
Can
is
it be more than 100%?
because the plant is totally made up of water. The cellular material weighs very little, and most of the weight of the plant is in water. 4-to-1 ratio. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. Got it.
So if the plant, no, I don't want to do math, no, I won't go there. I should have prepared one. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay, okay. So we're having stuff around the house that looks good. It's got high moisture content in it and is low. Okay. So if it does catch on fire, the probability of it catching on fire is close to 0. Okay. So landscape zone 1, here's some stuff we don't want in there. We don't want woody vegetation. We don't want shrubs in there. Okay. We don't want organic mulch. No organic mulch. It's burnable, right? It's wood. We want plants with low flammability. And now here's my point where I'm going to start selling you. The inorganic mulch. Okay, anybody ever heard the term scoria? Okay. I bet you all of you have heard red lava rock, right? There's no such thing as red lava rock. Well, maybe there is. Lava is the stuff on the surface, right? The liquid rocks on the surface. Magma is the stuff underneath the surface. Well, scoria, red lava rock, gets blown out from underneath the surface up into the air. And if you will think about it, it's an air-fried rock. Okay? And so it's blown into the air. Scoria, red lava rock, has got about 50% air in it. Okay, so what's the best insulating material to keep your ground cool during the hot summers? Dead airspace, right? So scoria is an absolutely wonderful rock. Does it burn? No, it doesn't burn. I'm not a scoria salesperson, by the way, but I want to share with you the attributes of that. It keeps the soil warm, or excuse me, keeps the soil cool, holds the moisture in. It doesn't need to be replaced every year. It does a slow fertilization. Cats don't use it for litter box, and it doesn't burn. Okay, there's 6 things right off the top. It's an outstanding material to use as an inorganic mulch within that 5 feet of the house. So it is wonderful, and you can plant stuff in it. Okay, so this is just another slide showing those attributes that I was talking about from the different plants. So we don't need to go over that again. Okay, now we're going to talk about some forbs. I'll skip that slide. Now what I'm going to do is just throw some forbs out here to think about. I'm not trying to sell you any particular brand of plant, but just give you some idea to think about. Lupin and what have you. Columbine, anybody ever seen a strawberry lawn? I've seen a couple of them when I was working in Montana, and it is really, really a cool looking lawn. Obviously, it's not great for trafficability, but it is a cool looking lawn, and obviously you can graze on it. Couple other forbs that are wonderful. Fireweed, Clarkia. Fireweed is a great plant that comes up following fires. It's a good nitrogen fixer and does all kinds of good things. Bitterroot, Scarlet Gilia. I'm just giving you ideas. I'm not trying to sell any particular one, but these are the types of plants that you want in that landscape zone 1 immediately around the house. Make sense? Okay? So challenge me on some of that stuff if there's any questions. If not, we'll just keep going. Okay? All right. Let's right behind you.
This scoria stuff, lava rock, we put some in a place, I hated it. It seemed like I couldn't do anything with it and it was just hard on everything. You said you can grow things in it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
like,
just spread it out a little bit.
so you spread it away so you're into the
Well,
into the
just,
dirt?
you know, all you need is a 6-inch area to grow it or to grow a plant in. It comes in different colors. You know, when it's reason it's red, it's coming up through water. You can get it where it's almost black and it's almost gray at different places. So it comes up different colors, if you will. The reason, like I say, the reason it's red, usually, it's coming up through water in the ground.
You say you can grow things in it, but it sounds like you're spreading it away in order to grow something.
Like any mulch. You want to leave a little area for the plant to
Right.
grow.
Okay, thanks.
Does that make sense? There's a lot of people that don't like scoria because it's hard to walk in and you don't want to walk in it in your bare feet, what have you. You don't want to kneel in it or roll in it. But, you know, there's multiple things you can do. One of the things that I think is very important is most of us like planting plants and what have you, doing the gardening. We hate maintenance of it. Okay? We want to live in a house that we don't have to do maintenance. We want to live in a place that we feel comfortable, we feel relaxed, we feel safe. That's the kind of house we want. So there is nothing in this world that's free. There's four rules of ecology. Everything's got to go somewhere. No free lunch. Everything's connected, and nature knows best. That's the 4 rules of ecology. So we have to pay for something to get something, okay? So nothing is absolutely free all of the time. Another question. She's coming.
So most of the landscapers will put fabric down and rock over. What's the
No.
trade-off there?
Fabric is a waste of time. 1 year, fabric is good. Okay, after 1 year, you get enough dust and enough pollen and seed coming out of the air that it's going to grow over the top of that fabric. And also, I mean, has anybody ever seen black cloth sticking up through a lawn or a garden? Who has never seen that? Okay, maybe that's a better question. So it doesn't do, and it doesn't, most fabric, well, it depends on what kind of fabric it is. But a lot of them do not allow oxygen, carbon dioxide exchange between the soil and the air. So it really doesn't do any good except for 1 year. It depends on what kind. The question is it more flammable? And it depends on what the fabric is made out of, okay? I think, no, I don't know. How's that? Landscape zone 2. So here's the types of things we want. Is this, again, height of vegetation. Right next to the house, we want it to be very short. As we move out, it can be taller. And when we get out in zone 3, it can be much taller, okay? So again, anybody know what this is? Okay. Red triangle. So we're getting out, we want medium to short vegetation in that landscape zone 2. Okay, we're stuck again. on the, there we go. So in that landscape zone 2, here's a key thing to remember that I think is very simple to remember, is lean, clean, and green, okay? We want it to be lean on woody vegetation in landscape zone 2. We want it clean, we don't want dead stuff in there, and we want some moisture content in it, green, during the fire season. Make sense? So if we remember nothing else, just in landscape zone 2, lean, clean, and green. Okay, that's an easy one to remember. And these are the types of things that you want to be looking at. Is we'll talk about this as we go. Okay. Sandberg's bluegrass, my favorite grass of all time, a native grass that only gets about yay high, and it only produces a flame of 2, maybe 1 to 3 feet. Okay, it's a flame that, you know, when the whole thing is burning, you can walk back through it and no problem. It has saved my butt on 2 occasions on fires. Idaho fescue is another one, but it burns a little bit hotter. It can produce a 3 to 4 foot flame length. But again, it's a short grass, and these are all bunch grasses that I'm talking about. Again, needle and thread, Indian rice grass are some grasses that they cure out, July, August. But if we water them about once a week, I have kept these grasses green through the entire fire season, just by a little bit of water on drip, okay? A couple other grasses, sand dropseed, prairie June grass. Again, these are great grasses from a fire standpoint, as long as you keep them green in that landscape zone 2. Now we're getting a little bit bigger grasses. Basin wild rye is absolutely one of my favorite grasses. I mean, it gets tall. It can get very big. So you keep the clumps apart, okay? So one clump may burn. And again, it's easy to keep them green throughout the fire season by adding a little bit of water. Here's a couple of grasses that are in the, if you will, up in the mixed conifer type, if you're living up a little higher elevation, that can produce a nice lawn, if you will. Shrubs offer, variety. Most of them are xeric. I just show some that I think are really cool. Serviceberry, wild rose, woods rose, I should say. A couple other ones, elderberry, golden currant. Spirea, a nice pretty plant. Shrubby cinquefoil can be an issue. It can be an issue at times. It needs to be cleaned out more frequently. Here's a couple of lower growing shrubs, Kinnickinnick and Oregon grape. In fact, in Oregon grape, there's 2 different species that grow around here. Mahonia rupens and Mahonia aquifolium. Aquifolium is the one that gets big. It gets up 3-4 feet tall. But the other one stays nice and short to the ground, and I think that's a great species. Mock orange, one of my favorites of all times. Really nice shrubs. Same with dogwood. Dogwood is often thought of being as a really moist species, but they can grow in some pretty darn dry soil, dry soils, as long as they're fairly decent soils. Okay, shrubs and trees, how to keep them apart is whatever the shrub height is, you want to double that distance apart. So if you got a 2-foot high shrub, you want those to be 4 feet apart, branches to branches, not stems to stem, but want the branches to be at least 4 feet apart if they're 2 feet high. Trees, you want them to be at least 10 feet apart on the from branches, okay? And as you see, the steeper the slope, the more distance you need. Because on the top ones here, here you're just talking about radiant energy transferring between those. But once you start getting on a slope, it's radiant energy and conductive energy, the hot air rising up. So you need to be further apart to keep that away. Any questions on that so far? Okay, great. Let's go to landscape zone 3. Is now we can get, again, using this, we get out here, we can get tall shrubs and trees. So we want to keep them far apart. A ladder fuel. A ladder fuel is a fuel that allows, it would be like you have a dry grass, a sagebrush, and a tree. Okay, the sagebrush would be like the ladder. It allows the flame to climb up into the tree. Does that make sense? So we want to make sure out in landscape zone 3 that we don't have any ladder fuels. I'm going to show some trees and start off with 2 trees that everybody, there's always a controversy on that, okay? Aspen. Most people hate aspen in their yard because the suckers come up everywhere. Well, aspen is a tree that you don't manage the growing stock above the surface. What you manage is the root system underneath. In my opinion, it's my favorite tree. But you just got to be smart where you plant it, okay? And it does need moisture. Cottonwood, a lot of people dislike cottonwood because of the seeds that are floating around causing lots of distress to some people. Okay, a couple other trees, hackberry and Pacific willow, a couple of trees that grow around here. Anybody ever seen a hackberry around here? I've seen one, okay? And they were common, I understand, back in the day, okay? And I'm not sure if they were net leaf or common hackberry, but they're very common in eastern Oregon still, and but not up here. So I thought that was kind of interesting. A couple other trees, the Oregon Valley oak and the big leaf maple I've noticed big leaf maple all the way down into the lower, very lowest end of number 1 Canyon. Anybody you ever walk the Sage Hill Trail by Lester? Get on. There's a couple of trees there, not too far up the. Yes, Gary oak. Quercus garryana. Okay, all the stuff I've been showing you is fire resistant. Now here is a fire resilient tree. It's fire adapted and it's fire prone. I just thought I'd throw this out here just for the heck of it. I would be very quick on it. The nose cones from days gone by, when the capsule came back into Earth, do you remember all the stuff flying off of it? Is they got the idea from a ponderosa pine tree. If you take the bark of a ponderosa pine tree and heat it up, the bark flicks off, okay? And so they did the same thing with the space capsule, figuring out they laminated the metal so as it comes back into the Earth's atmosphere, that metal flakes off. That's why they can only be used once. I thought that was an interesting tidbit of science and nature tied together. Okay, so here's best. You know, landscape zone 1, we're kind of wrapping up here. Herbaceous, perennials, and annuals, and vines, stuff that is hard to catch on fire, very fire resistant. Landscape 2 and 3, the further we move out from the house, the taller the vegetation can get. But if you noticed, I haven't been talking about putting conifers in here. Most of the stuff I've been talking about has got fire resistant attributes, right? So here we go with the landscape zone. Zone 3, our objective in there, if it does catch on fire, that it burns with low intensity. So we don't have to worry about the radiant energy catching our house on fire. And then we get to landscape zone 2, if it catches on fire, our objective there is we have no fire spread. Landscape zone 1, nothing burnable, okay? Okay, maintenance. If we don't do maintenance on any of our plants, they all become fire burnable, okay? One that I throw out here that I think is very key is washing plants out. Making life fun. When it's 90 degrees, get the hose out, put your bathing suit on, go out there and wash all the dead stuff out of a plant. Make it enjoyable, make it fun, so you don't have to think, damn it, I gotta go do that again. Make it a fun thing. Get in a water fight, okay? And try to figure out how to make these things fun and enjoyable. Okay, and then the attributes, the value, if you will. I'm not trying to sell you something, but here are the attributes and the desirabilities, if you will. And again, they're available local. You don't have to order them on Amazon, right? Okay, there it is, the last slide. And hopefully we had a whole bunch of different things, and hopefully those dots became connected. I hope it all makes sense. Just a second. And I got one more slide, and then I'll come back to your question. Is the other thing about this that I think I tried to give you what is close to perfect, okay? Perfection can never be achieved, but we can get excellence. Excellence is the best that we can do with the time, money, resources, energy, whatever. It's the best that we can do. And we're comfortable with that, okay? I'm not suggesting being sloppy. I did the best I can do. Is Michael Jordan, anybody ever heard of him? I think he played baseball. Okay. But anyway, he could never reach perfection. I mean, at the time, he was probably the best basketball player there was, but he knew well that he could never get to perfection. So he would always practice to get better. So with that, I'm going to answer questions now. Have I got any time? Just a couple of questions.
I've been trying to allow some things, for the bees, the birds, all the, I can't think of the word I'm trying to say.
Biota.
What do how does that come into the fire prevention?
Just like I showed you, the plants determine the animals that grow and live habitat, if you will, live in the area. Is taking the attributes of the plants. I have, they're mostly gone, but we have access. Here's a book that we put together, and it talks about all the different types of plants. This is not limited to native plants, by the way. This has got everything in it. You're welcome to take that. And this card here, if you take one of these and mail this in, you can get one. The DNR, the Department of Natural Resources, funded this book. We wrote it, and then they published it. And if you take one of these cards, you can send this in and get a free book. All of the information I have up here is available on the Chelan-Douglas County Master Gardener website. Everything I have up here is available on that. So don't worry about if you don't get one of these. These are available in English and Spanish, okay? So all the stuff that I wrote is available both ways. Okay. Is one more question?
One more
there?
question.
Oh, I was just wondering, you talked about the embers falling on your roof and things like that. If there's a fire near my house and embers are falling, should I be outside with my hose on, spraying water all over my roof and things like that? Or do you think that's just way too dangerous? And of course, then if my house catches on fire, I'm inside that too. So
if you're told to evacuate
Okay.
immediately. Don't wait. Evacuate immediately. If you are not told to evacuate and it's safe to stay, squirting water doesn't hurt. Right.
All right.
Thank you
All
very
right.
much.
Thanks so much, Al. And Al is willing to stick around for a little bit if you have more questions, and please take a look at the resources he's brought with him. We will send out the presentation, so if you're interested in some of those websites that he recommends, then you'll get that information as well. And then